Welcome to the Bagel Logic Podcast, the show where Papa Thom spreads wisdom like a smear of cream cheese on an everything bagel. Here's your host, Thom Jennings.
All right, everybody, welcome to the inaugural episode of a podcast I've been wanting to do for a while. It's called Bagel Logic. Now, the impetus for this is, well, I believe the album is by Steely Dan, and it's called Pretzel Logic. And Pretzel Logic it's twisted, and bagels are, they're circular. And so each week I kind of want to go through a topic of conversation. I'll come up with something. I started a bagel business this last year during the pandemic, and like everything in my life, my life is paved with a road of mistakes and challenges and things that I've faced along the way. And, a lot of times it's funny because I'm 55 years old, so people will often ask me for advice because I think it's because I'm old. That's definitely part of it. And I'm a talker. But I guess by the societal measures, I'm not especially not in business. I'm not a super successful guy. And with that being said, why in God's green earth would you want to listen to a guy like me? Well, fairly simple, because, my dad, when he was younger, I remember him telling me the story of Ted Williams. Now, if you're a baseball fan, you know who Ted Williams is. Ted Williams was an amazing hitter. He played for the Boston Red Sox. I believe he was the last baseball player to win the Triple Crown, which is runs batted in, home runs, and batting average. And just an incredibly talented baseball player. But as far as a baseball manager, he was pretty mediocre. And Dad used to say that some of the best baseball managers and managers in general are the people that can look at the people with the natural talent and figure out a way for them to maximize that. So, in other words, if a guy like Ted Williams, hitting doesn't necessarily come easy to him. I mean, it's something he has to work at, obviously, and he has to take his skills. He has to hone it, but there's a certain level of natural talent and maybe some luck that kind of came along the way. And, when Ted looks at a guy who's struggling and trying to get things done, he probably had a little less patience than he would have had he not been so talented himself. So I appreciate talent. I appreciate people that have skills. And in terms of me, when it comes to advice, I think my advice comes from a place of, hey, you know what? I understand that life throws you a bunch of curves and obstacles, and it can be difficult. And my advice may not be the kind of thing that you're going to read in a book where, who you want to become a millionaire, or I'm not going to be the next Stephen Covey or anything like that. It may even be Covey. I don't know. Is it Covey? You say Covey. I'm hoping that maybe somewhere along the line it'll be moderately entertaining. We can find some people that can relate to some of the challenges that I've faced over the years. And who knows, maybe we can just start a conversation that will be beneficial to us all. So, and, try to start and end at the same point. I think it was a friend of mine named Matt, maybe, who said that when I was telling him about this idea, Bagel Logic. He says, we should have a starting point, and at the end of the podcast, you should come back to that point. So obviously our starting point today was business and the starting of a business. And I mentioned that was we started a bagel business, but I'm going to go back to my wasted youth and talk about all the other failed business adventures that I tried to get going. And, it's funny. I'm a social studies teacher. That's part of one of my many occupations. And a lot of people look at a guy like Abe Lincoln. They say, no, you want to talk about a successful president, Abe Lincoln. He had all these failures and all these challenges he had to overcome, and then eventually he became president of the United States. But it's funny, like if you look at the ending to the Lincoln saga, his election winds up causing the bloodiest war in the history of the United States. multiple cities are destroyed. And kind of makes what's going on now with COVID seem very mild by comparison. But he gets high marks for preserving the Union and leading through a difficult time. But in the end, he winds up getting killed. He's assassinated in the head. So it's like when I think, wow, what did this guy have to show for all of his success? I mean, his face is on the penny and it's on the $5 bill, So I guess it's be careful what you wish for. Do you want to be the most successful president in the history of the United States of America, but not live long enough to spend time with your grandkids? I don't know. It's a great question. What does that have to do with our topic? Well, again, it kind of goes back to whether you learn from successes and you learn from failures. And success is, in my opinion, it's very relative. And, you hear about a lot of people that supposedly have successful businesses and they have a business mentality. In my case, I definitely don't have one. I'm the first one to admit that. And my first business venture actually was a little thing. We called it J&A Consulting. And J stood for Jennings, A stood for Ashbury. This guy named Dave Ashbury. I don't even know what ever happened to Dave. Dave was just a brilliant young man. I was a restaurant manager at a restaurant called Friendly's. And Dave was a waiter. He was going to college, but he was just one of those guys that just was very well put together. Always dressed really nice and very likable, super intelligent. And I think, like me in many ways, still a level of insecurity because he wanted to start a business venture, but he just didn't want to start one on his own. So the two of us, we came up with the idea. The initial idea is, hey, let's get a DBA, let's start a business or partnership or whatever, and we did. And I'm not sure how J wound up being before A, but it did. Maybe because I was older than him, but it was Jennings and Ashbury. Didn't work for Dave and Tom. And what we did is we were going to be mystery shoppers. So we would go into restaurants and evaluate service. You'd go in disguised as a real customer, and then eventually you'd give a report to the restaurant owner or the restaurant manager. And they could use that to kind of monitor what's going on in terms of food quality, service, all those front of the house and back of the house type things, which made sense because I was a restaurant manager, assistant manager. Is not to jump too far ahead, but later I was working at a restaurant and I wound up getting fired because a mystery shopper came in. And when I was a bartender, I was changing money out of the cash register. I was taking money out of the tip jar and exchanging it, buying ones or whatever. And the mystery shopper said I was stealing money out of the cash register and putting it into the tip jar. So it's just like, you want to talk about how things come full circle. But during that period of time, I read a lot of books and, I thought I had it down. We wound up having one client, and I thought we did a pretty good job. We billed him, a fair amount of money and everything like that. But then everything kind of fizzled. I mean, Dave went his way and I went my way. And that was the end of our first business venture. But more importantly, is it like, what did I learn from that? And I would say the positive takeaways was that, I really did spend a lot of time reading different books and trying to kind of understand the workings of small business. And I must have taken away a little bit of something because there, I still have a little bit of ability to kind of build up a teeny venture, this Papa Thom's Rockin' Bagels thing, which we'll get to later. But yeah, it was weird. And a lot of it, it's funny. It kind of goes back to this Amway. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever been, approached by people wanting to sign you up for Amway. I don't even know how it works anymore, but basically back in those days, there were a lot of these multi-level marketing companies. And they tapped into, when I was in my early 20s, they one of the things that they do is they kind of tap into your insecurities. And I dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. So For a lot of years, I kind of had to try to BS my way through life and hide the fact that I was uneducated. So I think I've overcompensated trying to appear more educated than I am. And, I at this point, as mentioned before, I'm a teacher, so I did go back to college and get a degree. But during that period of time when I was younger, these multi-level marketing, they kind of use that pitch to look to see if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, and then they stoke that a little bit. So Amway, it was like, hey, you're already buying laundry detergent every week. Why give all your money to the laundry detergent company when a portion of it can be towards your business? And, all you got to do is harass all your friends and get them to sign up below you. And no, it's not a pyramid scheme, even though it's clearly a pyramid scheme. But, and it's funny because like with Amway too, one of the things that I took away from that was that I listened to a lot of tapes, a lot of motivational speakers. And in many ways, it's reinforced the feeling that I had regarding, that Ted Williams philosophy that my father used to say, because a lot of these guys, you don't ever really go to a motivational seminar with somebody who on some level has not achieved something great. Even if you think about it, when you go to, you have a guest preacher at a church, they're always somebody that may have done horrible things, but they've overcome it by finding God or, whatever. And in these Amway situations, it was always, this is my horrible life and I had nothing and I couldn't go to vacation and, we almost lost our house and I got fired from my job and then my leg fell off and we didn't know what to do. But then my wife and I said, Amway. And now we do what we want to do. It's like you leave these things feeling so energized, like, wow, this is great. Same thing. It's really the same principle as somebody that speaks at a church, and gives their quote unquote testimony. And Amway was always kind of they were one of those organizations that, in my opinion, I don't want to get sued by Amway, but my perception back then was that they really kind of played up the whole Christian connection. They had we were getting not only motivational tapes when my ex-wife and I were signed up for Amway, spending all of our money and not getting anything in return other than cornflakes that tasted like soap. We'd get these Focused on the Family tapes, which I'll be honest with you, I really enjoyed them. I don't consider myself a uber religious person, but some of those Focus on the Family tapes were pretty good. But again, the ones I remember were the motivational ones that were like, telling you that you had to be in control of your own life. And, I think when people decide that they want to start a business, that that's the thing that you really have to kind of dig down in your soul and look at and decide if you're doing it because it makes sense or because, maybe you're trying to escape something. So like J&A Consulting, the reason I started that business was because I was a restaurant manager, an assistant manager, and I was working like 65, 70 hours a week. And, we didn't have a dishwasher. I'd be washing dishes and I didn't get to spend much time with my kids. And don't get me wrong, I've always loved the restaurant industry. But the reality is that the main motivation for Amway and the main motivation for J&A Consulting was because I wanted to escape working for somebody else. I didn't like my job at the time. So I in so many ways, that is just the most horrible reason to start a job or start a business. But I can almost see where in some cases it may be a motivational force that can get you on your way. But either way, I think it's important that you understand what is motivating you to start a job or start a business, because that's ultimately what's going to determine if it thrives or if it fails. So my other mini business projects, was the next one was something called Coronia Media Group. And I thought this one was much more thought out. And the Coronia, just to give you an example, it's spelled like Corona the beer, but there's an I in there, and it's Coronia. The Coronia was a ship that my grandfather sailed on from Ireland to the United States and then started the Jennings family. So the name was sentimental, and Media Group, at that point I'd been doing some freelance writing for a while. And I was approached by a gentleman. His first name was Phil. I forget his last name. And he was the organizer of a pretty successful festival here in the Western New York area. And I don't remember where I ran into him. It might have been I feel like it was at a bar. But anyhow, our first exchange, he said to me, he's like, I know you write for this newspaper, the Niagara Gazette, and your column appears every week in Night and Day. And I've been trying for years to land a column in this Night and Day. And truth be told, I think anybody that, I'm sure I'll do if this podcast goes anywhere, I'm sure I'll do an episode on my newspaper column, because it's I think there's probably some good stories and good advice that can come out of that. But he'd been trying really hard, and usually the best way to get an article written by a newspaper reporter is to build a relationship with him. And it sounds easy, but if you get nothing else out of this podcast, I've just given you some really good advice. I mean, the term public relations really has to do with relationship building. And so Phil, he basically started a relationship with me, and he of course appealed to the fact that my writing was about music. And so he knew I must love music, and this festival was doing an offsite music series. And he basically did the old, hey, you're the guy that writes music for the paper that we really want to column in. And I really respect your work, and I've read it. I know who you are. So will you do a story? So I did. And then I think I did a couple other ones. Now there's some ethical things that come into play when it comes to writing a column for like somebody you know. You know what I mean? You always have to kind of be careful. The newspaper I've written for has always been pretty good about it. I've written stories about my kids' band playing or whatever. So that's not too much of an ethical lapse. But anyhow, I had to be very careful what kind of relationship I had with this guy. And then eventually, we wound up getting a story for him in the magazine. He loved it. And he says to me, he goes, hey, we really need somebody to run our public relations for this festival. We've done this festival for 7-8 years. And do you think it's something you could do? And, I was like, well, geez, how hard can it be to start a public relations firm? So I got together with my son, Tom Jr., and my buddy John Ritz, who was a photographer, and we decided to form this trio. And it kind of goes back to the first lesson about the first organization that I formed, J&A Consulting. You notice it was Jennings and Ashbury. So I think in many ways Phil had said, hey, Tom, this is something that you can do and you could probably manage on your own. What wound up happening is again, my insecurities led me to have to bring a team together. We had to be like this 3-headed monster or whatever. I shouldn't use the term monster because Jay and my son are great people. But the point being is that, the business really started at the suggestion of somebody else. I didn't have a huge passion for doing public relations. And I don't really have a very good business sense when it comes to that stuff. And I think, if nothing else, I learned to really appreciate the type of person that can succeed in the public relations business. It's not somebody that needs to be ruthless, but as I mentioned, being a newspaper writer, the publicists and the people that I work with, that are most successful tend not to be big fans of the people that they work for. They're not too close to the subject. And that's good because, they need to make decisions not based on their own fandom or what they think is going to happen. And you know what, when we did the whole Corona Media Group thing, it was like, again, my ego was stroked. Hey, you do such a great job writing. You should just take that and parlay it into public relations. But we never focused what exactly we did. So really at that point, we'd only had one client, which was this festival. And then we decided to seek out another client. And we did. We wound up getting a music series. But we did all of the work for the music series for free. It was, on trade. Musicians know the term exposure box. Hey, we'll do this for you free, and then we'll be able to put on where it's a resume builder, all those things. But at the end of the day, that's what wound up happening is we kind of got into this hamster wheel where, we found all these great clients, everybody that wanted to work with us, and but nobody wanted to pay us. So it was a hard lesson because we put in a lot of work and we just didn't make any money. It was cool to be backstage at these concerts and, have a good time and all this other stuff. And I'll tell you kind of a funny story. It's a group called Theory of a Dead Man. And they were coming through when we were working with this music festival. And our grand idea was we were going to do, and this is well before they have these expensive meet and greets and, for like $500 or whatever. So we decided that we were going to photograph people during the meet and greet and then sell them the digital prints for like, I don't know, $5, $10, whatever. So the manager of the band got a hold of it and he just flipped out. He's like, well, you can't take our picture without our, sell our images. And we're like, oh my God. This was literally the only chance we had to get paid. And it was the first show and the whole thing just blew up in our face. And it's funny because I said, you look back now, that's pretty standard practice within the music industry. People doing the meet and greets, paying for the pictures and all that other kind of stuff. It didn't work out for me. And again, it's one of those things. I started a business that it wasn't something I was super passionate about. Too many of my insecurities got in the way. I couldn't make it work. And we never made any money. And then it just kind of slowly dissolved. And then, one of the other big missteps we had is we were working with this Fleetwood Mac tribute band. And thankfully, they probably will never listen to this audio, nor will it get back to them, or maybe it will. I don't care. Whatever the case. So we met with a group, and they were Fleetwood Mac tribute act, and this is even before tribute acts were a big thing. So we were just ahead of our time. That's one of my favorite expressions, by the way. Ahead of their time. Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't pay the bills. But anyhow, so the leader of the Fleetwood Mac tribute band, her and then this other guy were there. We met with them. And they were like, well, we're not like Fleetwood Mac because we all get along. Like, okay, that's cool. So I thought, having worked in the music industry as a writer, small town writer, that, I was smart. I was the smartest guy in the room. I'm going to take this Fleetwood Mac tribute band. They wanted to go like out on the road or something like that. And so we wound up doing we wound up signing a contract. And the contract included a percentage of money they were supposed to pay us for any gig that we got. And I said, listen, before we book any gigs, we need some professional photos. We'll take our photo guy take all your pictures, and then we'll get a pro shot video. So we'll have a pro shot video, and then we can farm this out to promoters, and then hopefully we get some gigs. So I don't know. I think we were maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we had done the photo session, and then we did the video session later. 3 of the members quit, so then that meant photos were no good, the video didn't come out properly, and we put all this time into it. And then there was an incident where they had replaced the keyboardist, and the one keyboardist posted on Craigslist that it was her performing with this Fleetwood Mac tribute band. And she was like, this is Joan Davis and Rumors. And so I got a call from the leader, and she's flipping out. She's going, "Oh my God, I can't believe this woman put on Craigslist that she's the leader of this band." I says, "Listen, she didn't put she was the leader of the band. She was just letting her friends know that she's in the band." Like, that's all it is. She's like, "Well, I don't care. I'm not going to, you can't post anything without my permission," and blah, blah, blah. I was like, listen, when you get your crap together, we'll move ahead with the contract, and we'll try to, work some things out. So I think it was maybe 2 months later, they signed with another management company, never broke our contract, never paid us a penny for anything. And there's a promotional video that shows up, and it's all the pictures that we took, with the former members cropped out. And I was like, I sent a message to the new management. I said, "Hey, listen," I said, "one, these guys are technically under contract to us, and we didn't even know they were under contract to somebody else. But two, either you guys got to pay us for these pictures we took, or you got to take them down." And of course, she lost her mind, But it goes back to, I think in that case, it was on my end, I need to set some expectations, and we need to collect some money up front. And we did all this work for free, all of it. And I think once you set the standard of free, you're never going to get paid. Never. Okay. It's not going to happen. And I continued the next venture I had. It was a running race, and it was out here in the Western New York area. And I grew up in Rochester. My kids lived in Buffalo, New York. And that's if you're from outside of the area, there are two cities that are within like an hour and a half of each other. But we did this running event, and I did it with another guy because, I can't do anything on my own because I'm too insecure. And he tells me, I pitched this idea to him for this running event. He's like, we're going to have 10,000 runners. We're both going to be rich. We'll be able to quit our jobs and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? You're right. You know why that's going to happen? Because my idea is so freaking phenomenal that it's going to make us rich. So there was a mistake you don't want to make right there. Get out of your head. Your idea is not that great. It really isn't. Well, maybe it is. But make sure that that's not you. That's not your ego thinking it's great. In fact, I think in some ways, as we come full circle back to my bagel business, it has created a deep insecurity with me right now in terms of my bagel business, because I don't think my bagels are that great. And everybody tells me they're great. Don't get me wrong. I eat them. I love them. I know it's a good product. People continue to order them, but there's still a part of me, because of, past business failures and everything like that, that really just is so insecure that I can't even accept the fact that this business has some potential, and it's created a bit of paralysis. So, again, to come full circle, I started this bagel business, and it's after all these other failures that I told you about. And we get orders, and people tell us we love us. It's a very small scale thing. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's something bigger than it is, but it's big enough. And it's successful in the sense that we get repeat business. We are consistent. We're doing okay in that respect. The revenue's there. We have a hard time meeting demand. But I've made a lot of those same mistakes because I've carried some of that baggage. So for instance, one of the big things that I've struggled with is in terms of the bagel business is charging a fair amount for my bagels. Because after, all these other things that I thought were the greatest ideas in the world, when they didn't work, part of me, and even trying to overcome that mindset of, being paid for work, in some ways it's kind of ironic, because here I am, I'm doing this podcast, and I mean, my hope is the podcast gets to the point where people listen to it and I put ads on it and make a little bit of money. That's my hope. So in a sense, I'm working for free now too, and bitching about the fact that I'm working for free. So it's coming full circle, folks. But you know, it is. I think if there's nothing else that I can emphasize to somebody that's trying to start a small business, I'm not talking about some tech company or new software or building a gigantic store or whatever. I'm talking like maybe kind of taking your side hustle and making it a little bit bigger. Be humble, man. Just sit back, be humble. Get paid though. Get paid. If you're not getting paid, get the hell out. Get out quick. You're going to resent it after a while. And that's some of the things I'm struggling right now with my bagel business is just me getting paid. I'm the owner. There's no Ashbury. There's no Jay Ritz. There's no Tom Jr. This is me. It's my name's on the business. So if I'm not getting paid, it's like, what's going on? I got nobody else to blame. I got nobody else to fall back on. And I don't have another partner like I did with a running event telling me, oh, this is the greatest thing on earth. It's just me. But that's okay. And I will say that because I think in many ways it's important for people to own it. And at least if nothing else, if it's just you, you're not going to live in this world of hatred and resentment for whatever the hell your business partner did to you. I actually, one of the businesses that I didn't talk about, and I said I'd keep this within 30 minutes, so this will probably be it. But I had a buddy of mine, he wanted to open a bar with me, and I didn't have the money, so he just said, hey man, I'll pay you. I'll give you a portion of the business. You just set it up for me. You get the liquor system set up, you get the bar set up, you just do all this stuff. And when that time comes, man, I'll take care of you. The dude not only didn't ever give me a percentage of the business, he slept with my wife at the time. Not my current wife, but it's like, it just doesn't get any worse than that. So who's that? That's me. I'm a sucker, dude. So, again, my Bagel Logic is the huge takeaways are, you know what? If you want to start yourself a business, do it on your own at first. Fail on your own. Learn from the mistakes. Realize whatever the first business that you're going into is probably not going to be the first and last. It might be. I don't know. From my experience, it hasn't been. Listen to the people that are closest to you. There's none of these businesses that I went into that the people closest to me didn't tell me that it was messed up and it wasn't going to work. I haven't heard that with a bagel business yet. I probably need to, but just listen. Just listen and do it for the right reason. Do whatever you do for the right reason. Like this podcast. Why am I doing it? It's therapy. I don't know what it is. It's because I enjoy it. Because I've always wanted, because I'd rather be a famous podcast host than a famous bagel maker. This is the truth. This is the ultimate truth. But that's it, man. I hope you enjoy this. We'll definitely do some more ranting and talking. Again, I don't want to position myself as some kind of crazy thought leader, an overly educated, perfect person. I'm just a guy, trying to help people out there. And maybe you find something in here that you can take away and learn from. And maybe you can communicate back to me and tell me something that I need to hear. But that's it for episode 1, Bagel Logic. And since I didn't say anything when I started, I'm your host, Thom Jennings. Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you next episode.